Okay, hello everybody. My name is Dr. Alicia, and I'm going to get right into it. Today we are picking up where we left off. This is my book club, and we meet pretty often. Actually, I would like to meet every Sunday and discuss this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships: Five Keys to Mindful Loving by David Richo. And I've been working with um, people who enrolled in the Healing Haven um, program. I've had two cycles. In August, I'll be starting cycle 3 of Healing Haven, and it's so much fun. We just finished cycle 2 earlier today, and we talked about how to have a positive mindset. I really do think that this book really helps, I think, to explain all the things that happen to us. And so today I'm going to be reading from this book, but I'll be coming on here. I'm available next Sunday, so I'll come on here next Sunday to talk about how to be an adult in relationships. I love this book. It really talks about how we need to treat other people like humans. I feel like so much of what I see and observe, just politically, how people treat each other in this world, and even the way people treat each other in our homes. I think there's so much effort to dehumanize other people. And I know that hurt people tend to hurt people, but I would love to find some sort of foundation and basis on just basic human dignities being restored. And a wonderful framework with another therapist who clearly agrees with me on how to live in a way that's very peaceful. And I think that being an adult in relationships is something that our world needs to embrace. There's a lot of adult children walking around this world harming other people. So I would love to have this to be a foundation on how we need to see our pain, see each other, and how we need to treat each other with some dignity and basic human rights. I mean, this is where this is coming from, just basic human rights. We have been covering this book for quite some time, and this is my first time actually recording these conversations. So anyway, today we're going to talk about, on page 18, we're going to talk about, and we still haven't even gotten into the chapters of this book. This is really just kind of the epilogue. It's chapter 1, how it all began. We haven't even gotten to the meat of it. And the last time we met, we did talk about how to live the life of a Buddha. How to live a life of being mindful, of experiencing things in a way where instead of reacting to things from the gut, saying things from the gut out your mouth. Have y'all ever done that? I have. When I'm not in my mindful space, anything that comes to my gut, I have no filter. I'll just I'll just blurt it out. And when things like that happen, you regret because you haven't been mindful with how you're talking to somebody and presenting yourself to people. And we all are victim to this sometimes. So, I think that this book, in the last time we met, was a wonderful way to start to become mindful in how we speak to people, how we interact with people, all of that. So I just want to welcome everybody. I see JG in the chat. Welcome. And if you're here today and you're just joining us, one more time, I just want to say we are covering how to be an adult in relationships. It is a book by David Richo. He's a wonderful therapist. I love therapists because licensed therapists, y'all don't know the training that we go through. It's not like I'm speaking from the gut, right? We go through an extensive application process just to enter a school that's going to train you on how to help others. And then you have lots of courses you go through. And then even when you graduate, after taking a whole curriculum of courses, you still have, that's where the practice really starts, right? And so years and years of study and practice, so I sort of understand and I love drawing upon what other therapists have figured out. So anyway, he does a wonderful job. I love the title of this book. I think we're going to get right into it. I'm on page 18, and it talks about a positive spin on how it was and is. So the very first thing he mentions is that it may seem like a sign of weakness to have needs. Actually, needs direct us to grow in ways we were meant to. Childhood yearnings for attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and the experience of being allowed to be ourselves are not pathological, but developmental. And I would say this does not only mean these are experiences you've had as a child. I think as adults, we still have these needs as adults. But a lot of what we have and a lot of the things that we see in media is that having needs and needing something and not having it, for a lot of us, we feel ashamed by it. Like there's something wrong with us because I have a need, an emotional need. It could be a physical need. It could be a materialistic need. Whatever needs that we have as children and as adults as well, there's always some shame just by having this need. It's like, what's wrong with me that I really do need a hug from my mom today? Or I really would love for my partner. I really need my partner to come and compliment me, or I really need for somebody to call me. I would really love to have somebody in my life that I can share my life with. Sometimes we look at that as a weakness. And I think that we need to start looking at all of our needs as is not a sign of weakness to have these needs, right? So it says, in trying to get a parent to pay attention to us. So all of us have these needs, but when we're growing up, to try to get a parent to pay attention to us, we were seeking what we needed for our healthy evolution. We were not being selfish. We were not but self-nurturing. There is no need to feel ashamed about it now. And I think that as children, when we grow up and we have some of the fundamental needs that were never met, a lot of times we get the message that needing love and attention and acceptance for yourself, needing to have our parents pay attention to us, sometimes we feel like we get the message from our parents that having these needs means that you're selfish. Well, I can't do that for you now. I'm tired. Well, I can't do that for you now. I've had a long day of work and I'm too tired to give my children what they need. Or I can't give that to you right now. And I think it's legitimate because so many of us are working every day, long hours, and we come home and we got more things to do. We have to be able to give to our children. But it's very difficult to do that when you're tired and exhausted. But the thing is, the dynamic of that's the reality. But the dynamic of that is often being told, can you please pay attention to me? We get the message that means we're selfish. And that's not the case, because when you feel like you're selfish because you have some need that you would really like to get met, you start to feel ashamed by that. You guys in the book club, does that resonate with you at all? Feeling like selfish because you want someone to pay attention to you. You want someone to stop what they're doing and to pay attention to you. Have you ever felt shame? How about you all in the chat? Have you ever felt ashamed because when you were growing up, because you want your parent, your mom or your dad, or to someone to see how good of a grade you got in school, or come home and wanted someone to just listen to your day? You struggled. Maybe you got into a fight on the playground and you really needed somebody to sit and pay attention to how your day went. And a lot of us would have loved for that to have happened, but sometimes we can see that our parents are busy and they're not able to give us that, or you feel kind of ashamed for having this need to want somebody to pay attention to you. So a lot of times we are given messages that wanting individual attention from a parent or from a spouse or from a friend, that somehow you are being selfish for wanting that. So that's what he's talking about. These are, it's seen as a sign of weakness and selfishness that we even need somebody to pay attention to us. Yeah, so JG is saying, I never want to feel like I'm using them or being a pest. Yeah, and particularly women, we're always given that we need to self-sacrifice, that we need to sacrifice ourselves, that we need to forfeit a nap or sleep just so that we can just give to other people. And we also have to be in a position where we can receive. Okay, so he goes on to say, childhood forces influence present choices. For the past is on a continuum with the present. Early business that is still unfinished does not have to be a sign of immaturity. So it's okay for all of us to have baggage from our childhood. All of us do. Every single one of us, myself included. We all have baggage. And it's not a sign of maturity when your baggage comes up, right? Rather, it's a signal. It can signal continuity. Recurrence of childhood themes in adult relationships gives our life depth, in the sense that they are not superficially passing over life's events, but inhabiting them fully as they evolved. Our past becomes a problem only when it leads to a compulsion to repeat our losses, or it smuggles unconscious determinants in our decision. Our work then is not to abolish our connection with the past, but to take it into account without being at its mercy. The question is how much the past interferes with our chances of healthy relating and living in accord with our deepest needs, values, and wishes. What he's saying is that you have to spend some time making the connection between what's happened in your past and how you function today. And that no matter what has happened in your past, not to be ashamed of it, not to be ashamed of some needs and wants that wasn't met, but to be consciously aware of the fact that you had these needs, they weren't being met, and thinking about how they show up in your life currently. And this happens for all of us. So the question is how much the past interferes with our chances of healthy relating, living in accord with our deepest needs, values, and wishes. Okay, so he goes on to say, for better or for worse, our psychic development is the result of a lifelong continuum of relationships. The adult goal is to work through each of them. So I think for so many of us, we bury them. We say, yeah, this happened to me in my past, but you know what? That was just in the past. I don't want to think about it. I just want to continue on with my life, and I just want to disassociate myself and disconnect myself with pain that's happened. I'm going to go through in my life, and that's where you don't know it's going to come up for you. So the best way to deal with the pain of your childhood sometimes is to go through them. That doesn't mean to live in the past. That means recognize how the past is affecting you now, and to deal with some of that and to process it. I was talking earlier today with another group that I was meeting with, and we were talking about reflective learning, reflective, being able to be reflective of your past. And they were saying in the study how well you're able to think about your childhood and reflect on your childhood is deeply correlated with your level of functioning as an adult. So what they were saying was that there's a scale or an assessment. You can scale you of reflective thinking. So the assessment is from a -1 to a 9. And they said the general population of people, general population of people are able to reflect at about a 6 level of reflection. But they also gave this scale to people who were in prison. And people who were in prison, their reflective ability was maybe at about 2. So it was 3 points lower than just the general population. And so they were talking about what happens when we're not able to process all of the things that's happened to us in our past, that we're low level of being able to reflect and to be able to think, has an impact on our ability to be empathetic to others. So it's not that you've been traumatized by all the things that have happened to you in your past. That's not important. It's things that have happened to you that were problematic. It's your ability to be able to think about those things and to be able to, why would my parents do that? Why would my teachers do that? What happened that this person did this? When you're able to kind of come up with a reason, why your parents did it. You know what? I think my mom, she was really cranky sometimes because I do remember her mother treating her this way. It's just being able to be empathetic and understand others has a lot to do with how we're able to function as an adult. So that's just an example of like how we do need to kind of deal with this and confront this because it helps us. Also, people who have depression, their reflective ability was more at like a 3 or a 3.5, where the general population is almost at a 6. But the good thing about this study was that going into therapy, having a place to just talk about some of the things that's happened to you in your past really does help you to become an adult in relationships, because you have this place where you've been able to have a reflective functioning, which increases your ability to have empathy. And having empathy helps you with adult relationships currently. So the empathy is what's developed when you're able to reflect upon what's happening with you. So it was really nice for me to know that, because as a therapist, I want to know, gosh, am I really making a difference? Well, yeah, probably more so in ways that I don't know, like just having a place where someone can just sit and talk about the things that come up for them really is having an effect, or having a positive effect on just their ability to empathize with anybody in general. And I think it's great where I can be in a position where I can give someone a corrective experience so that they can get through a lot of the issues that are happening with them. I know he's being loud. It's very noisy in here. Yeah, voices right. He'll walk around and just talk like that. Thank you, Khalid. He just walks around. I was trying to hint to him that he was being talking a mile a minute. But anyway, so that's important. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so that's important. Like, and studies have shown that just being in therapy, even 10 to 15 sessions in therapy, increases your reflective functioning, which decreases anxiety and depression and the ability to be empathetic. And I'm thinking that me or therapists being empathetic to other people kind of helps create this sort of empathetic environment that's a corrective experience. Okay, so let's go on. It says, for better or worse, I think I read that already. Where did I leave off? Okay, we wrestle with past relationships respectfully, like Jacob with the angel, until they yield their blessing. The blessing is the revelation of what we missed or lost. So the blessing is just in the realization of, wow, I needed this when I was growing up and I never got it. That's the blessing. that revelation. Can you believe that? This man is actually talking about the pain that you experienced when you were growing up is actually a blessing. Yeah, I think that makes sense because pain is inevitable. Experiencing pain, all of us are going to. I'm not saying that it's a great thing that people are mistreated, but what I'm saying is that if you do enter into a situation where you do feel pain, I'm saying that these opportunities, if you process them and you deal with them, you can learn from them. So I'm not saying that this is great, that bad things happen to people, but I am saying that what this author is saying, that the revelation is a blessing. Knowing that gives us momentum to let go of the past and find need fulfillment in ourselves and in other people who can love us for affirming ways. Such love restores or repairs a psychic structure that was lost or damaged in early life. We can begin a coherent sense of who we are, which in turn makes it possible for us to love others in the same powerful ways. I like that because you are not your past. There's so many people who get online and they say, oh, you came from a broken home, so there's something wrong with you. Or you came from a home where your mom wasn't there for you. Or you came from a home where your dad abandoned you. And they try to pigeonhole you and put you into a box based on your past experience, as if it's a determinant of how you're going to live your life right now. And it's not. It does not have to be that. The past does not have to dictate the present. I think this is what this man is saying. Yes, you can go through things that are unfortunate. And yes, relationships happen and relationships fail. And sometimes they don't fail. All of these things happen to you, but it does not have to define who and what you are. You can deal with it. And honestly, I really think that it gives people, personally, I think it gives people a lot of character and in substance. When you know, in a sense of sensitivity when people have gone through things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay. All right. We receive from others and thereby learn to give, for love teaches generosity. This maturation consists not in leaving needs behind, but in recruiting support of others who can give age-appropriate and generous responses to our needs. Excellent. Among childhood habits, defenses in particular have been looked upon as signs of inadequacy and pathology. However, we need many of our defenses for psychological survival. We are defending ourselves from things for which we do not feel ready. For example, closeness or full commitment. We learn to stand guard over our unique wishes and needs in early life. If showing them was unsafe, we learn to defend the delicate and vulnerable core of ourselves from humiliation, depletion, or distrust. These are skills, survival skills, not deficits. I really love that because it's the best thing that Freud ever did in his career is talk about our defenses. I think that when we were growing up, sometimes it's so painful to deal with disappointment, with anger towards somebody doing something that they shouldn't have done, or they didn't do something that they needed to have done. All of the disappointments that all of us have had growing up. I remember being 5 years old, waiting for somebody to pick me up somewhere, and and my mom being late, and I'd be like, "Why were you late picking me up?" And she was like, "I was on the phone and lost track of time." And I remember thinking, "Hey, this lady can't get it together." Like all of these things that happen where you have disappointment. So that's just an example of a disappointment. And the defenses are some of the things that we have to tell ourselves so that we can deal with the pain of, is my mom picking me up, or is my mom going to be there for me when I need it? And for the people who in Healing Haven, I think I did a whole thing on this. Let me see if I can find it in our book. 50 defense mechanisms. Yeah, so our defense mechanisms, instead of looking at them as pathological, our defense mechanisms really keeps us grounded. It really should be a place where we are able to look at it and be able to say, you know what, I needed to rationalize. On page 48 of our book, the Healing Haven book, I don't know if y'all have it in front of you, but they talk about defense mechanisms, or I wrote about defense mechanisms. All of the feelings that we have: anger, fear, disgust, sadness, surprise, and happiness. Those are basic feelings all of us have. But anger and sadness are the two things that for a lot of us is uncomfortable to feel. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to feel anger toward my mom, for not picking me up like she was supposed to be, because when I came home to her, she had dinner cooked. She had, there's so many other wonderful things that she's done. So in my childhood mind that thinks black and white, sometimes it's really difficult for me to kind of think about that. So I can rationalize it. I can say, well, it wasn't really that big of a deal. I wasn't really that sad that she didn't pick me up like she said she was going to do. It's really not that big of a deal. That's a great way to kind of like minimize. Because if I had to deal with, this is just an example, if you deal with the pain of being abandoned, which is very painful for some of us, sometimes we'll just deny it, or we'll minimize it, or we'll just say, I've had some experiences where I'd be like, I forgot about that whole thing. That was really terrible. Well, I just kind of suppressed it, right? We suppress some of the things. And some of that is the defenses that we have to do to kind of like deal with things that are painful. In that moment, it was appropriate to do. Now, I think the issue, and I'm wondering if he's going to get to this, and I think he will. These were survival skills, not deficits in the moment, in your past, that you needed to do. Now, I think where it can become problematic is if you continue to adhere to these defenses when you're an adult and you're reacting to somebody as if they were your parent, but they're not. You're holding on to these defenses, right? Okay, so let's read on. I think we're going to get to that. If we feel unsafe as children, we may still feel that way and still be using our old defenses. Yeah, so he does get to it. We may run from or defend ourselves against intimacy now for fear of a replay of childhood betrayals that left us crouching behind the wall of fear, which is defenses, right? On this wall are graffiti that besieged our self-esteem. And part of that graffiti is, don't let anyone get too close. Don't commit all the way. No relationship will ever work. No one can love you as you truly need to be loved. Men and women can't be trusted. Our work as adults is to replace these governing principles of behavior with healthy and more optimistic ones. Governing principles that limit our full potential for lively energy, the manifestation of our own unique life force, are like the governor on a truck accelerator that prevents the truck from ever getting up to full speed. That fear, the abandonment issues. Thank you, Khalid. People in the chat are writing things. Thank you. That fear is what stops us from really having intimacy later in our life. And for many of us, I think it's appropriate to be cautious when you're dating or when you're loving someone. It is appropriate to be cautious, right? You don't want to just put all your love and energy into somebody right off the bat and you haven't really worked on things. It takes time to build up trust. But for some people, they just never quite feel like they can trust, because of this abandonment issue. Or they instantly come in and they want to be instant friends, or instantly start dating or cling to somebody because they're afraid that that person will abandon them. So it still comes up in your life. Any comment on that, you guys? I see you all in here. You're shy to talk. People in the chat are talking. How about you all in the chat? Khalid talked about abandonment issues. Yeah, abandonment issues are tough. You know, are you going to be there for me? There's a lady, oh my God, may she rest in peace, Sue Johnson. She's a fantastic lady. I've taken a lot of her trainings. Sue Johnson, you're nodding, right? Sue Johnson recently died. She passed away, and that lady was phenomenal. What a great teacher. And she talked about couples therapy. She said every single argument between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, every single argument between any couple is boiled down to one question. Are you going to be there for me when I need you? And it's funny because when you first hear it, you're like, nah, it ain't about that. It's not about that. But she goes through in her training and she videotapes herself meeting with couples. And I've seen all of her videos, and she'll boil it down. She'll have a grown man in there in tears talking about, yes, I really deep down feel like I don't want my wife to leave me, or I don't want this. Like, she has really been able to use attachment theory the way this gentleman does, David Richo, How to Be Adult in Relationships. She's able to use it in married couples or dating couples, and she's been able to pinpoint exactly what it is, how to be an adult in relationships. And that she boiled it down to that simple question that comes up for people: attachment. Are you going to be there when I need you? If I am sitting at the dinner table at your parents' house and your mom says something to me that is insulting, are you going to stick up for me? You know, are you going to protect me? If I call you and I'm sad about something and I need to talk to somebody about it, are you going to stop everything and address my needs and help me with this, or are you not? And she has been able to remarkably talk about every single argument between a couple boils down to that one question, and she's amazing. Sue Johnson, may that lady rest in peace. Ashe to Sue Johnson, because she had helped out a lot of people. And she's Britain. She has this accent, and I think sometimes the accent kind of throws people off in listening to her, but I love her work. So she talks about attachment. Anyway, the wall of fear, right? Most of us have unrelenting longing for whatever is missing from our childhood. Every intimate bond will resurrect these archaic yearnings, along with the terrors and frustrations that accompany chronically unmet needs. This is the reason why I feel that every intimate relationship you've ever been in, on some level, is the exact relationship that you needed to have in that moment. Because on some unconscious level, you picked that particular person to be with because you needed to work through some issues from your childhood. Why are you so attracted to that person? There was some issue that you needed to work through. I don't know, maybe on some level, you know, maybe I married Boyce because he's a college professor and my dad was a college professor, and we started dating when my father passed away. So that's kind of like, and that's something, right? And my dad, he knew Boyce. He probably was the number one fan of Boyce, by the way. We used to talk. My dad and I used to have long conversations about Boyce way before we started dating, because I've been friends with Boyce for 30 years. But he would call me, he'd be like, what's going on with Boyce this time? I'm like, well, he was on CNN. This is back in the CNN day. Boy, he got shut down on CNN. They really handed it to him. He's like, man, he needs to do, and I would relay messages between them. in our conversations or whatever. So I don't know. I'm sure Freud will have a fun time with that analogy. But anyway, okay. But this puts us in ideal position to revisit these thwarted needs, to revive our energy, and to reconstruct our inner world in accordance with life-affirming principles. A solid bond in a relationship, as in religious faith, endures despite the impact of events. Wow. Endures expect the impact of our events. So our resistance is the only obstacle to the growth that can emerge from pain. I've been talking about this for such a long time. I don't know if I need to talk about it some more, but there's growth from pain. I think when I started in my book, my workbook, we talked about mindfulness earlier today. And my quote was that I came up with, you may be forced to feel pain, but you are never forced to suffer from it. So it isn't an inevitable thing. So the issue with pain is a place of growth. Or it could be suffering. It's up to you to decide. But the pain that you experience in your life, a lot of times you can't decide that. But what you can decide is whether you're going to take that pain and grow from it, or if you're going to take that pain and suffer from it. As we mend the broken fabric of ourselves, what was arrested in the past is released. As we mend the broken fabric of ourselves, what was arrested in the past is released. We are back in touch with who we really are and can live in accord with that rediscovered essence. The way through your pain is dealing with it and releasing it and not being held back by the pain, afraid to feel the pain that's inevitable, right? Here I am on YouTube, comments are great in here, but things come up, things happen. My husband can come by and talk real loud, talk over me real loud. All these things happen, but I can decide how I want to deal with it, right? So yeah, I mean, to me, that's pretty heavy. That's heavy. Okay. Every person needs the nourishment of food throughout life. Likewise, psychologically healthy person needs the sustenance of the 5 A's. And y'all know what the 5 A's are: attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing in our lives. It is true that unmet needs for the 5 A's in childhood can be made up for in later life. In the sense that they cannot be fulfilled so absolutely, so immediately, or so unfailingly that absolute immediate fulfillment of needs by one person is appropriate only to infants. But needs can be fulfilled in short or long installments throughout life. Yes, you find moments of where all of your needs are met, right? You're in a relationship with another person, and it ain't always going to be great, right? We have to be realistic. You're always going to have issues in your relationships, but what you need to do is cherish the moments where things are going smoothly. Because circles, one of my favorite songs is by, y'all download this song by Robbie Fitzsimmons. It's a white boy. We're transcending race here. He's got a song, Robbie Fitzsimmons. He's got a song called Circles. And Lord, he was on to something, because that's what happens. You have moments where things are going wonderfully and all of your needs are met. Cherish those times, because there will be some problems happening. You will experience pain. There will be things going on. Being an adult in relationship is being able to realize that things are going to get missed. You're going to feel some pain. You will, in a relationship, your spouse or your partner will get it wrong. It'll be like y'all will miss each other. You'll be mad at that person because they didn't done something. That's inevitable. It's the wonderful way that human beings are with each other. Okay. So but in the midst of it, you're going to get it in doses. So it ain't going to be like that. It's not going to be rosy all the time. That's what he's saying there. Okay, and this is what he says. The problem is not that we seek gratification, but that we seek too much of it all at once, right? What we did not receive enough of before, we cannot receive enough of now. We did not receive enough of before. What we did not receive enough of before, we can't receive enough of it now. It's not over for you. I remember I was working when I first began my work as a social worker. I worked in schools. I worked in a school in Southside Chicago. And I remember talking to the kids about college or whatever. And we were having this conversation. And one girl was just like, we can't do none of that stuff. We live in the projects. Just because we live in the projects mean we can't do none of that stuff. We ain't going to be able to go to college and do all that stuff because we live in the projects. And I'm like, listen, just because you live in the projects, I mean, you're never going to become anything. Like, she really believed it. She used to tell me that. We live in the project. And I would be like, nobody knows you live in the project. If you went to college, filled out this college application, because I was helping some students process their application. And so if you fill out this college application and get into college and do okay on your ACT scores, you can go to college. No one knows you're from the projects unless you say you're from the projects. Like, you are not defined by some project girl, but she had embraced and just thought that projects was her life, and that's what she was going to be. That's where she was always going to be. Interestingly enough, those housing projects are gone, so God knows where she is now, but they knocked them all down and built really nice house. I wouldn't even recognize that part when I go there nowadays. It's really kind of sad because there were some beautiful people there who lived in the projects, but I don't know where they are. But she really thought that being a project girl was who and what she was, and she was defined by that. But and I would be like, come on, you don't have to be defined by. You can pick and choose what you want to be. Your past does not have to define you. There's no shame. You shouldn't have shame dealing with that. Not to be proud of the fact that you're from the projects, but it's just saying that, okay, that was my past. That was who and what I am, but it doesn't have to dictate my future, right? So no matter what you experienced, it doesn't have to have a hold on you. And instead of pushing it down and repressing it, at some point, you need to work through the pain. I think that's the biggest thing for today, working through the pain. Okay. We do not outgrow our early needs, whether they become less overwhelming, and we find less primitive ways to fulfill them. For example, an infant may need to be cradled and carried, while an adult may be satisfied with a supportive remark or a kindly glance. Sometimes a lifelong need can be fulfilled by such little moments of mindful love. However, we still need to be cradled at some time. So we all need. You want to say something, Karen?
Yeah, I wanted to say, Dr. Alicia, that I like how the author says that the processing of the pain is the good part. The pain itself is painful, obviously, yes. But the blessing in it is that we get to process the pain, and in processing the pain, we also get to change our mindset, which is what we worked on earlier today, is retraining our mindset to not stay stuck on the problem.
Yes.
To not stay fixated and stuck in the problem forever, but to find the silver lining or reframe what the problem is. And so that's what we talked about, and we worked on looking at the positivity, the positive aspects of the problem, and finding out what can we do about it. So
Yes.
like with the young lady who came from a bad neighborhood or whatever, the silver lining may be that if she gets accepted into college, if she was able to apply to a college, a university, and get the acceptance into the college, the silver lining or the reframing is that she has been accepted into college, that she can have a brighter future,
Yes.
that she can develop a better life for herself. So, you know, again, it's what my takeaway is to not stay in the problem, to refocus our attention to the solution, the silver lining, and reframing it so that we can, again, that ties into our gratitude, our mindset, what are we grateful for, how can we find, you know, the solution to the problem.
Yeah, I mean that's it. And again, that's a beautiful way of saying what I've been talking about, suffering from our pain versus growing, you know? Like that is beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Karen, for sharing.
Welcome.
If our emotional needs were fulfilled, he goes on to say, even if our emotional needs were fulfilled by our parents and caregivers, we emerge from childhood with trust that others can give us what we need. So if we have these emotional needs that were met, we emerge from childhood thinking that, you know, others can give us what we need. So you can be, sometimes people can be too trusting, right? We can then receive love from others without distress or compulsion. Our needs are moderate. We can trust someone to help fulfill our needs while we help fulfill theirs. This provides a foundation for a lifetime of intimacy and equanimity. Yes, it does, you know. So just knowing that people who feel fulfilled growing up, you see the world as trusting. People who have not gotten their needs met growing up, you see the world as suspicious. You ever met people where they say, I don't trust none of these people. I don't trust, no. They just immediately think that the world is dangerous. And you start to wonder, why do they think everything is dangerous? Well, this is why. They think the world is dangerous because they've been taught that the world is scary, because in their homes, they experience a scary world. So therefore, the world in and of itself is somewhere where no one can be trusted. You don't even trust yourself to make good judgments. So that's what's required. Okay. Our life begins in a containing womb and then moves into an embrace. Our identity cannot grow in isolation because we are dialogical by nature. So that means that we have to have a human contact. The importance of human relationships, that is so important. Only if someone has her arms around the infant can the I am moment be endured or rather risk. So he's quoting Winnicott. And I love Winnicott, by the way. He's a fantastic child psychiatrist. You guys need to check him out. He's pretty awesome. The original emotional needs of life were fulfilled in the holding environments of the womb. So he goes on to talk about, listen, at one point, all of our needs were met, right? So this creates a safe and embracing environment. This is all attachment theory and childhood growing up. If their needs are unmet, on the other hand, they may have difficulty trusting a higher power than ego or acknowledging the need for spirituality in adult life. Faith commitments call for trust in an invisible source of nurturance. And when visible source of nurturance have let us down, we are less likely to trust the invisible sources. That's interesting. So, I mean, I do find, spirituality and religious practices being a really good kind of model for attachment. So I see why a lot of people, I mean, I'm just thinking about slavery times and times where things are really hard. I can see like wanting, it could be a spiritual experience where you want to hold on to something because there's nothing else around you. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Okay, let's move on. When we did not receive fulfillment in one or more of the 5 A's, y'all know what the 5 A's are. Where is it? Attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing, right? When we did not receive fulfillment in one of the 5 A's, a bottomless pit was created in us, a unfulfillable yearning for the missing piece of our puzzling and airy past. Mourning in an unfulfilled childhood is painful. He's going back to this pain, the pain that we experience. We fear grief because we know we will not be able to control its intensity, its duration, or its range. And so we look for ways around it. Instead of dealing with the pain, we look for ways around it, right? But engaging with our grief, you have to grieve your childhood. Your dad wasn't there for you when you needed him to be. You have to grieve that loss. Your mom treated you poorly. You have to grieve that loss of having those 5 A's met in your life. Engaging with our grief is a form of self-nourishment and liberation from neediness. Paradoxically, to let ourselves experience our wounded feelings fully places us in the path of healthy intimacy. You have to deal with the pain, or you'll never, ever be able to have a healthy relationship. And you know what? Honestly, I think that this is why so many people turn to addictions, shopping addictions, porn addictions, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, everything to kind of numb yourself out so you can't deal with the things that are happening for you. And it's a learned ability of these defenses. The defenses are there because they protected you when you were young. But when you're an adult, I think that you have that responsibility to deal with what's going on with you head on, or it will haunt you forever. And nothing is costly and pricey, and nothing destroys a relationship more than addictions. Is this my problem? Have I been afraid to grieve what I did not get from mom and dad, and so have demanded it from partners, strangers, and innocent bystanders? I am unable to find it in myself because I have been investing all of my energy in looking for it in some place else. You're not going to get it in a Gucci belt. You're not going to get it from driving a fancy car and from all of the external things that you think can make you worthy. You're definitely not going to get it from how much money is in your bank. To retrieve the past and undo the past are the paradoxical goals in relationships. No wonder our relationships are so complex. But their complexity is not about the transactions between two adults, but the fact that such transactions ever begin. Instead, two children are tugging at each other's sleeves, shouting in unison. This is what two married couples look like to me. Two children trying to get each other's love and attention. It's so great. It's like being married means, will you be my friend? Yeah, I'll be your friend for life. Will you be everything for me? That's what two married people. And it's funny because when you bicker with each other, it's like you really do regress. You go back to like children bickering. It is really amazing how adults be regressing, bickering. This is quite fascinating. Look what happened to me when I was a kid. Make it stop. Make it better for me. In effect, We are asking an innocent bystander to repair a problem he or she has no knowledge of and little skill to repair. That's deep down inside what you're asking for in your partner. And all the time and energy that goes into that transaction distracts us from the first part of our work, repairing our own lives, which may require some work in therapy. He's telling you right now in this book that sometimes you have blind spots. And a really keen therapist will be able to look at you and will be able to connect the dots. Give you that reflective functioning. You want your reflective functioning score to be up. Okay. The cold ground of our psyche is like cryogenic laboratory where our unmet needs from childhood remain frozen in its original state, awaiting healing and fulfillment, usually without revealing to us the full extent to which we felt forlorn and bereft. The path to love begins in our own past and its healing, then moves outward to relationship with others. It is frozen inside of you. He's talking about trauma and dealing with a lot of that and seeing a lot of that. I think if it's frozen, it helps to melt it away. Okay. Even if our childhood needs were met, we may need to work on ourselves as an adult. So there's no escaping it. Everybody got some stuff to work on. Even people who grow up and become adults and have healthy attachments, there's still some things that come up for you. And I could attest to that, right? Nurturant parents make sure our childhood environments are safe and soothing. And as an adults, we may keep looking for people or things that we can create that miracle. It's a miracle thing. It is a miracle. If you grew up, and I would have to say personally, like, I'm a second generation therapist. So both my parents have advanced degrees in, not to say that I'm not better than anyone else, but they had advanced degrees in child development. And my parents were in their 30s when they had me. So it's not like they were just seasoned people. My dad had a PhD. My mom had a master's. She's got 2 master's degrees in childhood development. She's a therapist too, and all of that. And my dad taught, like I do right now. So I had 2 parents that really sent me into adulthood with a secure attachment. I'm just self-disclosing that, but that doesn't mean that I don't have my issues. I still got my issues. Maybe I'm a little spoiled sometimes. I don't know. I like to get my way. I don't know. You have to ask Dr. Boyce. With my Boyce.
Yeah.
What are my issues?
What are your?
I said I grew up with a secure attachment, but even if you had a secure attachment, there's still some stuff that can come up for you.
You asked me a question.
But you're making a lot of noise, so people know that you're here.
Oh, I thought you had a question for me.
No, I was just saying, what
here?
you say? Look at this. Look at everybody. Look.
Is that Aisha? I see Aisha and James.
That's her face. And
James. Oh, and I know that's down at the bottom. What's your name, ma'am? Wait, wow, why are you looking at me?
You are so hilarious.
What? No, but anyway. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Dr. Boyce.
Oh, that's Errol. Okay, yeah. Okay, now I see. Okay.
Someone asked a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Do you and Dr. Boyce Watkins read together to continue to enhance your relationship?
No.
We do not read together.
We don't.
That would be appropriate, but he's not.
Well, we listen to
not
audio.
reading this book.
We listen to audiobooks together. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I listen to your therapy stuff. Yeah. So
No, we don't.
I'm gonna walk out of here. Hello,
Okay.
everybody.
But even I have some issues. Would you not say?
Yes. That's my whole statement.
All right, just keep moving along.
Only after he was forced. Let the
Right,
only after he was forced.
I gave him permission to say I have issues, but right. Okay. So the recurrent fantasy or search for the perfect partner is a strong signal from our psyche that we have work to do on ourselves. No perfect partner. But I think you find the perfect partner for yourself, even in their flaws. So that's my caveat I add to Mr. David Richo. Okay. Okay, the perfect partner is the mirage we see after crossing the desert of insufficient love. So mirages is false. It don't ever happen. Like a mirage is, like on a desert, you think, uh-oh, I'm thirsty, and that's water right there. And you get up to it and it's not water. That's the mirage that we have in relationships. We think this person is going to complete me. Y'all remember what movie was that? You complete me. What movie was that where he says you complete me? Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire. Yes, Jerry Maguire has you complete me. That's false. Like that is, you are not going to find a partner that's going to complete you ever. Like they need to stop making movies like that because no person is going to actually complete you. I think we need to stop with that. That's a mirage, right? Mirages happen because we lack water. That is, we lack something we have needed for a long time. They are normal, nothing to be ashamed of. We should notice them, take them as information about where our work lies, and then let them go. Because ain't nobody going to be perfect, right? If we do this, we will come across the real oasis. Nature's gift to those who keep going, who are not stopped by the mirage. Oh my goodness. I love that part. That is so beautiful because it is so normal when you're falling in love with somebody. You think the world of that person, and you start noticing all the similarities. We got this in common. We got this in common. And oh my God, you're staying up all night, talking on the phone, planning to be together, all excited about seeing each other. We know the first 12 to 18 months of a relationship when you just fall in love. You are not falling in love with the person. It is infatuation, and that's what it is, right? And I don't want to say love bombing, but it's normal to do a little bit of love bombing. Love bombing is normal. You don't want to go overboard with it because then that's a deep sense of insecurity. But it's important that beginning stages of relationship, you want to put your best foot forward. That makes sense. And you just love everything it is about each other. But after that 12 to 18 months, the real oasis is getting over the disappointment and the letdowns that will happen in your relationships. It is normal. And so many people break up with someone. There's a lot of people I work with in my client and my caseload where they're just unrealistic about relationships. Like it is normal. We should expect to just fall in love and, think think the world of this person. And it's also normal to get past the differences because eventually you're going to start noticing the differences. God, I never noticed that he scrapes his teeth when he eats. Good grief, I never really noticed he snores so loud. But golly, does he have to be talking so loud? You start noticing things. And it's just normal. It's just normal, right? But what we don't understand is that the true gift is the other side of that. That's where true love and true intimacy happens when you are able to love someone through their faults. As long as it's not toxic or some of the awful things. I mean, there's some caveats to that. I'm not saying people should stay together. Sometimes there's some things you can't deal with. But for the most part, being realistic about relationships, the true gift is those who keep going, who are not stopped by the mirage. Yet it is a given of life that nothing is permanently and finally satisfying. Despite this fact, many of us believe that somewhere there is a person or a thing that will be permanently satisfying. Such a chimerical belief and the restless, desperate seeking that follows from it can become deeply disheartening and self-defeating. In mindfulness, though, We can surrender to reality with all its impermanence and frustration. And from that position of surrendering, something wonderful, encouraging can happen. We find that we want a partner who walks beside us in the world, not one who will change its given or provide an escape hatch from them. That's the commitment. Someone who's going to be your companion, even through ups and downs. And to have that in another person is a blessing, even in their faults. We will find a pleasing balance between surrendering to the given of the fundamental unsatisfactoriness of life while maximizing our opportunity for contentment. It is our discovery of the fallacious past. He's really working his vocabulary right now. He's using SAT words here. Where was I? For unsatisfactoriness. Okay, fallacious past between the snowy peaks of disillusion and despair. From this point of view, moderate need fulfillment, experienced in days or even moments, becomes satisfactory. Moderate is the key word for giving and for receiving the 5 A's: attention, acceptance, affection, appreciation, and allowing. A nonstop flow of them would be quite annoying. So if you got it all the time, if I would stop everything and just give my partner, give Boyce the 5 A's, he'd be like, lady, get out of my face. You've been up under me too long. Like, we don't need it all the time. You just need it. And if he was all in my space all the time, I'd be like, okay, I need a break. I think we need a break from each other. I love you, but I need a break. So it's okay to say that. You're not supposed to be all wrapped up in each other all the time. It's normal. You need a break from them. Our fantasy mindset makes us long for just what we would soon flee. Hence, what seems like an unsatisfactory compromise is actually the adult's best deal. The hospitable sanctuary and the generous waters of an oasis can be enjoyed for one day or many. So it's not like you're going to get your fantasy relationship 100% of the time, but sometimes you'll get it. Sometimes there'll be moments where, we actually had a really good time today. I'm going to appreciate this. Okay, you kind of got on my nerves today, but we'll try again tomorrow. This is just realistic, right? Sooner or later, they will cloy, and our hearts will long for what comes next. The desert and what lies behind it. Whatever their mystery or hardship beckon, and they cannot be evaded or renounced. Journeying is built into us no matter how beautiful our home. The idea, it's a journey. You're always on this journey of ups and downs, right? The idea of something more or different excites us no matter how pleasing our present circumstances. Okay, so he's going on about, he's using lofty words at this point. I can skip the lofty SAT words. So lastly, here's what we're saying. As long as you hold on to wanting something from the outside, you will be dissatisfied because there is a part of you that you are not totally owning. I promise you, I don't understand. Like, I know it's great for women to pay attention to their, what they look like and all of that. But I really do wonder, with all the plastic surgery, with all the BBLs, thinking I got to do and be a certain way to look a certain way. Like, sometimes there's just never ending. Like, you always are scrutinizing yourself. Like, I'm going to feel good only when I look a certain way. Not when you look like yourself, because I promise some of these women, they don't even look like themselves anymore. Now, I do have on blush and a little bit of lipstick. And I mean, so there's, with reason, right? Not that I want to change the way I look, just look like a totally different person. Because you're holding on to something on the outside. This is the materialism that I'm talking about. And that's the bottomless pit. Be content with who and what you are right now, is what he's trying to say. How can you be complete and fulfilled if you believe that you cannot own this part of yourself? until somebody else does something. Are you going to be beautiful because somebody calls you beautiful? Or are you just going to be beautiful because you believe in the beauty of who and what you are? Because beauty is really what you do and how you are and how you treat people and treat yourself. That's the beauty, right? If it's conditional, it will not totally be yours. If you believe that you cannot own this part of yourself until somebody else does something, waiting on somebody else to fulfill you, and moments where you're not fulfilled by that person is conditional. If it's conditional, it's not totally yours. So we'll leave it here, page 24. Let me mark my page. I do want to come back next Sunday. I ain't doing nothing Sunday evening. But I do want to come back and probably the same time, 7:00, to talk about this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. Get the book, read up until page 24, so you'll be able to see what we've covered in the past. Thank you for talking. Thank you for contributing. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We got some people here. Zara. Who else is here? Khalid. Dr. Vive. Thank you, Dr. Vive, for joining us. And everybody. So I'm thinking we'll come back next week. An hour and a half. We'll probably shrink it down. Maybe not so long next time. But anyway, let me say goodbye to StreamYard, and then I'll come to Zoom later. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Alicia.
Okay. Is it ended?